Welcome to the HanzeTalks, Hanze University of Applied Sciences podcast series. We're committed to supporting our current and prospective international students in their study choice, study success, and career development. We're talking with our students, teachers, researchers, alumni, and professionals. Follow us on Spotify and YouTube, and visit our website, hanze.nl.
Welcome, everyone, to HanzeTalks podcast series. We are here today in a very exciting new location, not at Zernike campus. We are at Klippa office. Thank you so much, Yelena, to host us. We are really excited to be here. Really, was long planned. My name is Katya. I work at the Hanze University of Applied Sciences at the marketing department. And I will be your host for today. Today we'll be talking about artificial intelligence and the future professions, but also, among other things, about leadership, entrepreneurship, international students, and many other things. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Jelen. I'm the founder and the CEO of a company called Klippa, where you are here today. And we focus on automating administrative work using AI.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Well, we really like it here. We already had a small chat before this podcast. It's really super nice office, by the way, really modern, and we saw really beautiful, spacious rooms, really stimulating the creative process. So compliments on that. Really well done. We are really happy to be here. So, to start with, just a couple of words about podcast that Hanze hosts. That's a HanzeTalks podcast series, and we talk about multiple things, various things. We talk about housing, we talk about student life, we also talk about career development, and that's maybe why also you have me here today as a host. Usually I'm not the host, so usually we have other colleagues and students hosting the podcasts. I'm really the one who is always for things like education and career development. So I also coach international students in career development. And more questions we get from our international students on actually employment here in Groningen province, in the northern part of the Netherlands. So we are extra excited, of course, to be here today at the Klippa, because I also know that you guys employ international students and graduates. I saw on the website, a couple of our graduates also work for you.
Definitely, yeah. I think we have 15 different nationalities right now.
15?
Yeah.
Okay, wow. Can you name some of the nationalities?
Well, I don't know all of them from top of mind, but Dutch, German, Romanian, French, Spanish. We have people from Guatemala here.
Wow. Cool.
Everywhere, basically.
Yeah. Are they also from Groningen? So they used to study here?
Yeah, most people came to Groningen either because they have a Dutch partner or because they studied in Groningen, and then they stayed after studying.
Aha, okay, interesting. And the language that you use here, the office, is it English or Dutch?
It's English, so almost all our company communication is in English because we have so many internationals, and all our clients are actually also international. So because you speak with your clients in English, half of your colleagues are non-Dutch. 90% of the time you speak English.
Okay, cool. Well, that's really interesting. Does it bring an extra challenge to you as a leader of the company to facilitate this intercultural environment? How do you feel about that, being Dutch yourself?
Yeah, I think the good thing about being Dutch is that you're quite international from the get-go. And what we have seen is when you have a fully Dutch team, and then your first one or two maybe internationals, it makes some changes, because then people have to talk in English. They have to start writing company documentation in English. But as soon as you have made that transition, then having 2 or 10 or 20 internationals does not really make a big difference anymore, because you're already in the we speak English always mindset. And that makes a big difference, I would say. Because it's the beginning that causes a little bit of friction, but after that, I think it's only a benefit.
Okay, that's really good insight. Actually, that's true. I mean, 1 or 2 or 3, indeed, it's a transition happening, and then you scale up, and then when it's 20 or 30, then it's indeed goes automatically.
Yeah, then it's the norm. When you apply for a position at Klippa right now, you apply in English. You have your job interview many times in English. You start in a team, and they speak English all the time. So then speaking Dutch or not speaking Dutch is not really an issue anymore.
No, that's true. But are your international employees or interns maybe, are they also learning Dutch?
It differs a lot per
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 person.
person. Yeah, I think everybody says they want to learn Dutch,
Yeah.
and I think half of them actually try, and I think a quarter of them actually succeed. I think something like that.
Okay, cool. Okay, yeah, well, it's asking for a friend because I'm also an international here in the northern part of the Netherlands. And I think, like, for me, the first main challenge was to indeed learn Dutch and to integrate.
Yeah.
It's also like out of respect to the country where you live and where you are going to be living for the next years, but also to be included into the, also like small talks with like Dutch colleagues or friends and to be able to understand things. I think it's just, for me, was a really important kind of moment to integrate kind of in the very beginning. So just was curious how things are happening now. A couple of questions I have also about you. You are very young and you're already a CEO. How did you do it? Please, can you share a little bit more about Klippa, how the whole idea was born? Who are the other founders maybe of the company, and how long have you guys been existing already?
Yeah, so there's a lot of questions in one, but let me try and give you a good answer to that.
Yeah.
So we started back in 2015. And we started with a group of ex-Hanze and RUG students. We were a group of 6, actually, which is quite uncommon. There's a lot of statistics out there that say 1 founder is the best, or 3 is the best, or 5 is the best. And I think those are nonsense to begin with. You have to start with a group of people that are 100% committed and that have different skills, basically, so that you form a good team. That's the most important part. And then how many that is depends on whatever you're going to build. So that's how we started. And we started basically because I had a desk full of receipts because I was an entrepreneur and I was a consultant. And I was looking at the desk and I really felt like, why do I have to somehow enter this into a computer system while it once was digital? Because it came from a computer. Then it was handed over to me, and then I have to somehow put it back into the system. There must be a better way to do that. Tried to find a solution, could not really find it. I did a semi-technical study because I studied information science, so I knew a lot of good developers. I'm not a good developer myself, and basically we said, like, I'm pretty sure we can build a solution that automates the administrative work. And initially, we started in financial administrative work, so invoices, receipts, expenses. And I used to work at a consulting company. They became one of our first clients, and we automated their expense process and their financial purchasing process. And that got a little bit out of control, I always say, because now we have a company with about 100 people, and we automate a lot of different types of administrative work. But that's where it started, out of frustration that we were spending our time on non-value added tasks that you have to do because you have to do your bookkeeping and you have to do compliance, for example, but you don't want to do it. So can you automate it as much as possible so you can focus on the important work? That's basically what we do.
Okay. So, and then it was almost 10 years ago already. So 2015, you said?
Yeah, the end of 2015. Yeah. So this is the 9th year.
9th year.
Yeah.
And so far, of course, I've studied your website, which is also actually quite awesome. Really, really super nice design over there. And you get the idea immediately. So it's also, I think your marketing team is also doing a great job in that sense. It's really clear. But you have like 3 offices, I believe.
Yeah, so we have 4 offices actually. We have one here in Groningen. This is our main office. Yeah. We have an office in Amsterdam. It's more a commercial office. And we have a small office in Hamburg. And we have an office in Romania. That's basically our back office team.
Okay. So you're in the international company now also.
Yeah.
Right.
75% of our revenue comes from outside of the Netherlands. So we are bigger outside of the Netherlands than inside.
Interesting. Okay. And how is it for you to maintain this whole the network of offices also outside of the Netherlands in Romania? We could also chat a little bit before the podcast, scaling up and all that. That it's a big difference when you were all in the same room and now 4 different offices.
Yeah. So there's a lot more formal communication that is required when you are in different office spaces. Because if you are in the same office, you know everybody by their first name, you see everybody every day, then there's just a lot of things you don't have to write down or explicitly say. because everybody knows everything,
Yes, yeah.
basically. And then you become bigger, that already comes with a challenge. You become international, that comes with a challenge. And then you have multiple offices. So that means not everybody speaks to everybody. And that means you have to write out a lot more things, present a lot more things, communicate formally in groups more often. So send emails to the entire company, for example, to make sure that everybody still knows everything that they need to know without them knowing it automatically by walking
By
around.
default.
So that is definitely a big difference, because you want to have the same culture, but it's different offices, it's different countries, it's different people. So that has a challenge in itself.
Yeah, interesting. But you said that you studied at the University of Groningen, information technology. It was, and other the founding members of Klippa, what did they study? If you can share that.
Yeah,
Just to give an
so
idea.
one of them studied accounting, basically. One did biomedical engineering.
Okay.
So he's also one of our developers. Someone else also did information science, but I was more on the consulting side. He was more on the development side. And one studied informatics, I think.
Yeah. So okay.
So all relatively technical backgrounds.
Technical backgrounds. Yeah.
And one financial.
Yeah. Good combination then.
Yeah, but
Good
I think that's
recipe
the
for-
most important
Yes.
part, that you have different skills. So I'm not a finance professional,
No.
but I know a lot about marketing and I really have a lot of entrepreneurial drive, but I'm not a good programmer. So I build our website, for example, but that's where my skills stop. So all the cool AI algorithms that we have, that's what some of my co-founders with their teams build. But they are not good sellers. So, right? So you need to have everything
There where you come in.
to be successful.
Okay, we will talk a little bit more about that as well, because super, of course, interesting as well. But we also have we are pretty much new to the whole story about artificial intelligence. So we have quite some silly questions about that, and of course there is a lot of prejudice and stereotypical sayings about that soon they will take over our jobs and we will be just unemployed, and it just already basically is happening next year. So should we be afraid or not? However, to me, I see that actually that technology gives you more jobs. Gives more jobs actually, and more interesting, more maybe fulfilling as well, challenging for developers or for marketing team as well. How do you see that? It's just really a naive question, from a person who has nothing to do with the technology.
Yeah, so everybody has a different perspective on technology. But our perspective definitely is that technology is there to facilitate people in doing what we do best or what we want to do. And I think one of the biggest challenges of our time is that we have not enough people, actually. So we might have too many people on the planet, but not enough people to fill all the jobs. So how are we going to solve that if it would not be solved with technology? So we believe that if you apply technology in the right way, then it, of course, eliminates certain tasks. So in our case, it eliminates repetitive work of data entry, for example. But the question is that the type of work that people should be doing? Yeah. Or if you automate that and more people can go into healthcare, into construction, into a lot of areas where there's a big lack of people, is that not better for everybody? And I think there used to be people working in factories, for example. Then they automated that factory work. I don't think there's many people that say, I want to go back to that time when I was working at a conveyor belt in that factory, right? So I think the same thing is happening right now, but then in office work. And in office work, it's a lot less visible, right? Because everybody's behind a computer who is doing what. But a lot of them are doing things that could be automated. And that means they can just do other things. And I don't believe that everybody will be unemployed.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Seems to me also it's a nice step forward in terms of progress and indeed offering people more fulfilling jobs, and indeed in a matrix way also they can just do different type of activities. But for me it was always an idea how do you make this change, the change management factor, so to teach people, to make them unlearn what they have been doing, because it's also the comfort zone, of course. They know what they're doing, they've been filling in these receipts into their system or things like that, accountancy or I don't know, admissions or things like that. And then suddenly, it will be all automated. So they will have to learn also new skills or to learn how the technology works, to, keep an eye on that. So for me, it's always a human factor, of course. You know, how do you make this mindset switch then with the people?
Yeah.
What do you see? Maybe if you can share a couple of insights from your clients, maybe because obviously they kind of approach that this way, you know, they automate and use the modern technologies for some like routine processes. How do they experience that? Maybe do you know?
Yeah, so I think what you say is exactly accurate. That these worries come from the fact that people are worried that what they know and do today,
Yeah.
that's going to change. And that is true. That only does not mean that you're going to be unemployed. It's going to mean that you have to master some new skills. Maybe you have to transition into a new job. And of course, that causes some friction.
Yeah.
So that fear, I think, is not strange, that you have to learn new things and have to adapt.
Yeah.
And that takes some effort. And if you look at our clients, probably only 5 or 10% of the digital work currently is automated. And we work for these front runners in automation. These tend to be companies that have already experienced that they just cannot do the same work with people. They cannot scale it fast enough. They can't find the people. So they are really having an issue of how do we do this? How do we do these fraud checks? How do we do the scaling of the volumes? We cannot solve it with people, so we have to find another solution. We get the majority of our clients via marketing activities. So these clients have an active problem, are searching for a solution, then they find us. So they are quite far, I would say, in their thinking process of, okay, then maybe automation, AI is a solution, and therefore they're quite open to it. But if you look at like a adoption curve, they are like the front runners. So and that's also the hype cycle of AI, I would say. Right now we're at the hype of everything's going to change. Well, in a few months or maybe a year from now, people realize it won't go that fast actually. It's still fast, but not that fast. And then the bigger group of companies
Will join.
So I think the big wave is coming, but that will take years because of the fact that people have to adapt to it, have to accept it. Usually technology is 10 steps ahead of what people are actually doing right now. Because people have to adapt, and that goes slower than technology adapts.
Okay, so we still have a couple of years, just you know, and people can just get used to the like this change that is coming. You mentioned also quite interesting thing about also the skills development, and of course, developers now like a worth of gold, obviously, you know, with all this technology coming. And we also chatted again before the podcast about how the universities prepare professionals for this type of fields. You also shared that you would like maybe once to take upon the role of a lecturer at the university, also being, you know, in the front line of all these developments. How would you, what advice would you give maybe to students who are currently from the RUH or from Hanze studying information technology, programming? Maybe they can already start reaching out to companies, you know, to make sure that they are like really relevant to the technologies that company needs at the moment.
Sure. Yeah, I would say that if you're in a marketing or you're into programming, they are actually quite practical professions. And definitely it's good to have a theoretical background. And that you can learn in university. But the practical background is as important, or maybe even more important than the theoretical one. So I think too many students, they wait until they finish their studies and then for the first time start doing something practical. And then they start to see, I actually don't know everything yet. While they sometimes finish their studies thinking, okay, I got my master's, now I know everything. So I think it's really, really good to early in your study time, start doing internships, reaching out to companies. Can I do a month, 3 months? Can I do a summer internship with you guys to just see how the real world is basically? And I think that changes your perspective on what you're learning, changes the motivation. And I think that combination of more practical, theoretical knowledge, I think would be really good if universities start adopting that also more. And that's why I think, not per se me, but in general, that people that are actually doing the work, involving them more in university classes, I think can be inspirational for students, because then you speak to somebody that is actually doing that job that you are being educated for. And that would be a great combination.
And Klippa as a company, do you also have that policy to employ interns? Because at the Hanze, of course, majority of our programs have an internship as an embedded, integrated part of the program.
Yeah.
Not all of them. We also, of course, like art and music, where they practice already basically every day. But most of the programs like have it already in. And usually we have this concern from international students specifically, like, okay, will you help me to find an internship? How we will be facilitated in that case? So maybe also Klippa has already experience with that, like having interns from like different kind of engineering programs working for you like for half a year or something like that.
Yeah. So we have everything from basically 3 months to 6 months interns. And we always say like we work with interns like we work with the rest of our team.
Yeah.
So that means you have to show up on time. It means you get real work, but it also means that you can learn a lot. And I think people are struggling sometimes to find internship positions, partially because they focus a lot on what they need to have. So they say, for example, I need an internship for 6 months and I have to learn this and this and I have to do this research.
Yeah.
But I think you also have to think about, okay, the company that is going to host you, what are they going to get out of that? So think about what can you bring to that company. For example, I come from Germany, so I have a lot of knowledge about the German language and the German culture.
Yeah.
I think I can bring that and help your company move the needle on XYZ.
Yeah.
Because it's a two-way street, right? We are not a charity organization. So
No, absolutely.
we would like to work with interns because we feel it's part of the responsibility of being in the ecosystem. We like it because we get in touch with talent that could potentially later work for you. But we also want to improve out of it. So I think that if they focus a little bit more on what can I actually bring to a company, that is also much easier to find an internship.
True.
Because everybody is in need of people, but they're in need of people that are going to help them and not people that only take a lot of time.
I really like what you just said because it's exactly, it rhymes with what we also try to explain to the students, that, okay, you also have to turn it a little bit around, your mindset, what is your added value to the company, and try to demonstrate it, because a lot of them have a lot to give. We also work with interns in our department, and it's always very nice how like the young people bring these new ideas, we can also learn from them so much.
Yeah.
And very often times they don't recognize that they also worth of gold, and they have really fresh new ideas, and the way of thinking is different. So and indeed like local knowledge of like about Germany or other specific skills, like that can be a really nice asset to the company and to the team. So put that on your CV. Don't like make it very like stiff and kind of based on some certain format and whatnot. Think a little bit more in a more like commercial way. Okay, what you can offer also to the company,
and put some effort into it. I think that's also important for me. I think a nice story to share is like 3-4 months ago, we had an intern apply, and they sent in a resume like everybody does. And sometimes it's not the right timing, or it falls a little bit in between priorities. And some people send one email and never come back again. Those are the people that get sometimes forgotten. But this person, for example, he asked his Dutch, he was actually Romanian, and he asked his Dutch fellow students, and he asked, okay, can I just go there and knock on the door and ask them like, hey, did you see my application? The Dutch people say, oh, that's very uncommon. I would not do that. And he thought, well, I'm going to do it anyway. And then he was in front of the door and he said like, hey, I sent in my application. And then they called me and said like, hey, Jelen, did you get his application? And then I had to speak to him, right? But I was also impressed with the effort he put in. And I almost immediately hired him because he did the opposite of what I advised him, because he put in extra effort. And that shows to me that if I'm going to give you an assignment and it's going to be a little bit complicated, that you're going to try to find your way around it, right? So he proved to me that he is going to do whatever it takes because he really wants something. And I don't even know his specific skills per se, but I know that he has drive, that he has will, that he has energy. So just sending an email and then hoping that you get an application, I think is, then you're very lucky if on the first email you would get an internship. Yeah.
It's true. It's like, don't hire me for skills, so experience, hire me for an attitude.
Yeah.
Right? That's that type of mindset. So it's really
And when you're young, you
Yeah.
might also know more about AI. You might have some cultural knowledge that the company highlight that, put some effort into it. And then you for sure can find an internship.
I also think that, they also need to put in the extra effort. I love that you said about that exactly, to like really make a research about the company, like to know all the ins and outs, who are your competitors, what the products are you developing, how many employees you have, where you can actually fit in and how.
Yeah.
I mean, I also saw on the website, I found it super cute, of course, that you have a chief distraction officer.
Yeah.
But, the dog,
Yeah.
Femke?
Famke, yeah.
Famke, yeah, and she's always here in the office.
I think like 3 or 4 days a week she's here in the office, yeah, and I think she actually really enjoys it because she gets a lot of attention from everybody.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it like also the way for you as a leader also to maintain this healthy well-being of employees here, just to maintain this atmosphere of friendship and openness?
Yeah, for
Right?
sure. So
Yeah.
I think we talked about a little bit about work-life balance, for
Yeah.
example. And you have people that have a very strict vision on that. So at 9 o'clock work starts and at 5:30 it stops. And that also fits with a very formal environment, for example. But I believe much more that work and life are intertwined. And that if you do something you really love and you work in an environment that is not extremely formal, there's no exact time where this is work and this is private. So we have a dog in the office, we have an Xbox at the office, we have chess games at the office.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that everybody is playing games all day, but it does mean that there's some fluidity between, hey, I get to the office, I work, I feel I need some distraction, I'm going to walk around, maybe walk with the dog. Then at the end of the day, I still stay in the office and play a video game with one of my colleagues, and maybe eat a pizza at the office and then go home. So it doesn't mean that you worked extra hours, but you did spend more time in and around the office because it's just a nice place. So that's what we try to do to make it more creative space, make it a little bit less formal. So every 2 weeks, on Monday evening, we eat with the entire company here, for example.
Nice.
There's a caterer coming, they bring food, we eat with everybody in the company. The company pays for that. I don't know any other company that eats together, but why not? Right? There's no rule that says you cannot eat with your colleagues, but it's just not common.
It's
But
true.
most people like it. Yeah.
Oh, it sounds really nice atmosphere. Really, I feel like everybody also can feel included here. It's just really inclusion. It's like actually that shines through, like the whole vibe here that we feel. I think all of us, we have a couple of colleagues also here.
Yeah.
Really like a little bit envious because how like really open is it here? Like, and with the new podcast studio that you have, so you always try new things. Really looks modern and like super attractive. I think also for young professionals, for developers, to work here. So it's really nice to hear.
It's good to hear from an outsider's perspective.
Really, that's
because
the first vibe that we get. Yeah.
Yeah, and we try to do that, of
Yeah,
course. But
yeah.
when you're the owner of a company
Yeah.
and you're trying to do that, you have kind of the idea that it's working. But it's always nice that when people come in, they also get that feeling, because that's the goal, of course.
Definitely, yeah. Maybe one of the last questions, because I think we are running out of time already, about you as a leader, because it's really like I'm still super impressed. Again, you're very young. You founded this company which is booming, like not only in the north of the Netherlands, which we all know the northern Netherlands is like slightly different in vibe maybe than in comparison with Randstad and maybe other parts of the Netherlands, or Silicon Valley, like in Eindhoven, things like that. Like, how would you describe yourself as a leader? What is it for you also? Like, how do you feel? Because every day you have to deal with like not only Famke, but also I can imagine quite some serious stuff, like including revenue and what have you. So
more serious stuff than the other side. Yeah. So what type of leader am I? I believe a lot of in freedom and responsibility. So I believe that you should set goals together, and that people should take the responsibility to own those goals, and basically whatever help they need, I'm willing to give it. But if you say nothing, I expect that you're going to get your goals done by yourself. And if you don't do that, then freedom and responsibility don't work anymore, because then somebody has to look over your shoulder all day and check what you're doing. And so you need to have a lot of responsibility to have a lot of freedom. So that's what the type of leader I am. I usually say, if you don't see me, it's a good sign, because it means everything's going well. You don't need me. Yeah. And if I start coming into your office and look over your shoulder, it probably means that something is going wrong. So I'm really hands off if it's going right, and really detailed hands on if I have to be. But I prefer not to be. I prefer that everything goes perfect by itself.
Okay, well, sounds great. really like, yeah, we're all looking forward already to working with you, you know, like it's so inspirational.
I'm also a little bit intense. I think many CEOs are like that. So when something is an 8, I want it to be a 9. When it's a 9, I want it to be a 10. If it's a 10, I want it to be an 11. So
good to know.
yeah, I think if you work directly with an entrepreneur, you will learn a lot, but you will also feel the pressure of, can it be better? Can it go faster? And for me, that's just like a lifestyle. When I wake up in the morning, the first thing I think is, how can we do it better? How can we make it faster? And it's not that an 8 is not good. It is good. But if it can be a 9, strive for a 9. If it can be a 10, let's make it a 10. And that is a little bit intense.
It is. But yet it's like, it's really stimulating as well. I mean, it's like always striving for perfection and like on the way to learn a lot of different things also. Like it's just, incredibly inspiring, I think.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be perfect in one try. So that's not a problem. It can be like an 8, 8.5, 9, 9.5. That's fine, as long as there's progress. And I think progress is the most important part. As long as we're progressing, every week we're better, then it's good. It doesn't have to be perfect in the first try. That's not a problem.
I love it. That's really, again, the growth mindset. It's really, we are not there. No, we are not there yet.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the idea, I think, that you try to also foster here.
Yeah, for sure. If you go into new markets, you hire new team members, you make new products, it's impossible to do it perfect the first try.
True.
And if you would try that, it would take way too long. And then you think you make something perfect, then you launch it, and then you learn it was actually not perfect. And then you still have to iterate on it. So you make things fast, you learn fast, you improve, but you don't do something which is not good enough, and then just say, okay, fine, let's keep it that way. That you do not do.
Yeah, for sure not. Okay. Well, thank you so much. It was really, really nice talking to you. I got really a lot of energy from this conversation, to be honest. Like
Great.
I'm going to like try for 9 and 10 now after that with our podcasts and all the other projects. Thank you so much. We are really happy to be here. Hopefully it's not the last podcast together. So you're always also welcome at the Hanze studio. We have also a studio at the university. Well, I think that was it for today. Thank you everybody for being here with us. We will be again, I think, available on Spotify and YouTube, of course, like hopefully very soon. So thank you again, and well, see you soon.